Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fitchburg Municipal Airport, November 17th Airport Commission meeting. Time is 6:05. Persons in attendance, commissioners, Richard Liberatore to my left, Beth Walsh to my far left, and Clayton Raymond, Airport Chair, Commission Chair. And to my right is Airport Manager Peter Kettle. People in attendance, Matt Karen and Jackie Marks of Gale Associates. Also Deb Silver, Assistant to the Airport Manager. Welcome. Items on the agenda tonight. Previous month's minutes, including special meeting minutes, up for approval. A note, I read through them. They do lack some detail, and I would like to check some facts, so I am not going to recommend approval for either October or September. I'll take any other comment from...
Make a motion we table those minutes.
Second.
That's fine. Thank you. Item number 2, action items from previous month's minutes. They're not highlighted, so just bear with me for a second.
Mr. Chairman, can I comment?
Yeah.
Please. I think everything that was on as an action item is now on this month's agenda in any case. So we could just go straight into the agenda.
Oh, it would be? Okay.
Please.
Yep. That's fine. Thanks, Peter. So we'll move on. Item 3, any correspondence to the commission? Peter?
None.
I didn't receive anything as well. Moving on to item 4. Gail, review of ongoing work. Matt, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first project is the runway 1432 final design and construction. Mr. Chairman, as you know, there's been some issues with the grounding system affecting the nav aids out at the airport. Nick from my office has been working with DW White, the FAA, and Mass DOT trying to find a solution to correct the grounding system. We received word from DW White that Cobo was not willing to come back out to the airport and do any additional work. There is a meeting set up for next Tuesday, November 23rd. Peter, I believe that's at 2:30. You were on that email correspondence to discuss next steps with Cobo, DW White, and see if there's a way to get back out there and correct this system once and for all. As another option, Nick from my office reached out to Mollison North Incorporated to obtain pricing for the additional grounding work. They'd be happy to do that work. They would just want to make sure that there's something in writing that they're not going to be held responsible for any future damage to the nav aids due to lightning upon completion of their work. This option has been floated to FAA and Mass DOT for their consideration in the off chance that Cobo does not go back out there. And all these funds are going to stay within the existing grant. So I guess what I'm saying is after next Tuesday's meeting, there should be more clearer direction on how best to move forward to get this system corrected once and for all. I don't know if there's any questions on that, or Peter, if I've skipped over anything that you may want to jump in on.
Just one thing. The reels on 3 to end are completely out now. We cannot highlight them at all. They just will not function even if we put it onto the automatic system. So they're out completely. We did have storms over the weekend. Debbie had a look and said it was Friday that we had the storms where the lightning was. But funnily enough, they did work after that. So whether the moisture's got in there again like it has at the other end, don't know. Right. But we really need it to be put right ASAP.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was all new equipment that was installed when we redid that runway.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, one other thing, there was mention of Mullison North wanting to, or interested in completing the work as a time and materials bid. Can we not do that? I mean, or can we do that? I mean, I would be in favor of letting them go ahead and do such a thing, because knowing that if you don't do time and materials, they're just going to inflate the price and go for it. I mean, it is what it is. We got to
Correct.
get it fixed.
Correct. They are the ones that suggested doing it on time materials. I think that we're in support of that. Sounds like the Airport Commission's in support of that. It's one of the two options that needs to be fully vetted through the FAA and Mass DOT process. And that's what we're hoping will be resolved after next Tuesday's meeting on the 23rd.
Okay, so to be clear, I'm in favor of time and materials. Whether the other commissioners are or not, I don't know. And would that come to a vote? Would we have to reapprove or to move forward?
Yeah, I think let's get through the meeting on the 23rd, and then once there's a definitive solution or a path forward to correcting this once and for all, I'll have Nick circle back and make sure if there's any, votes required or anything that's maybe out of the ordinary, we'll bring that back to the commission and just see if we can, get your blessing on that before proceeding.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Can I just add a comment? I think it
Yes.
might be relevant. If MassDOT and FAA do not pay for this, then we'd have to get an appropriation of funds from the city. So, just a point to note.
Why
Have to
would
sit in front of the city council and ask for money.
Why would it not be paid for?
Because the actual completion of the work, it's been done, it's been signed off.
But there's an issue, correct me if I'm wrong, there's an issue within the system, so it's not really functioning the way it was installed.
Correct.
So, and everything has a warranty,
Correct.
okay, so we shouldn't be paying anything.
There is money being held in retainage over DW White because the project's not substantially complete because of this issue.
Yeah.
So again, I would just suggest we get through the 23rd, see what that brings, and then we can get into the what-ifs and how do we pay for something outside of the contract if necessary.
Sounds good.
Any other questions on that? Okay.
So moving into the airport master plan update project, at last month's meeting, we reviewed chapters 1 through 3, which, as you recall, kind of set the foundation, gave the background information on the airport and facilities, environmental constraints, et cetera. Those chapters were reviewed by the commission, provided comments, updated, and then subsequently uploaded to the master plan section of the airport's webpage, which will show a link in the presentation a little bit later on tonight. Tonight, we would like to present Chapter 4, the forecast of aviation demand. And following the meeting, I would request over the next couple of weeks that the commission really review and digest the chapter, just kind of trying to provide an introduction to everybody as to what is there, answer any preliminary questions you have, but then over the next couple weeks, if you wouldn't mind responding and reaching out to me, I can provide my phone number, email address, et cetera, to take those comments, whatever works best for you, and requesting that those comments be submitted to me no later than the 1st of December. Because there's a little bit of a process involved with the forecast. In order for Gale to move into developing the subsequent chapters, the forecast actually has to be approved by the FAA. So we'd just be looking to kind of keep that process moving forward and get the review done so that we can then move on to approving it to go to FAA for review. So the next chapter we'll be working on after that is approved by FAA will be the facility requirements chapter, and that's the chapter in which we will review all of the airside facilities, landside facilities with respect to compliance with FAA standards, ability to meet the demands of the airport over the future, and we'll make recommendations for any required improvements in that chapter. So to just let you know where we're going. So actions required by the commission, as I said, if you could please all provide any comments on the forecast chapter by the 1st of December, would greatly appreciate that. And then we can keep things just moving forward with this process. Does anyone have any questions before there's other items that I'll address, and then we can get into the presentation?
I'm going to reserve comment until you present.
Sure. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Anyone else?
I've already passed my comments. Yeah.
Okay. So other items, just wanted to leave the Mass DOT pre-applications that were submitted. Those are still ongoing. We haven't heard word. Just wanted to let the commission know that no word from Mass DOT on those submitted applications. So moving on to the presentation, everyone should have a copy of the forecast. It's updated a little bit since I sent out my initial email to include some helpful comments that Peter made and that Deb also made. But certainly if you have further comments, I would be more than happy to take them and would welcome those. So to get into the forecast chapter, just an overview, next slide, of what we're going to go over tonight. We're going to go over the purpose and objectives of the forecast. We're going to review the resources that we use to develop the forecast. Then we're going to jump into the meat of the forecast itself. I'm going to try to, it's a lot to digest. It's a little bit of a heavy chapter, but I'm going to try to keep it light and keep it moving along. But feel free to stop me at any point with any questions that you have throughout. So we're going to review the different alternatives, the summary of recommended forecasts, the operational fleet mix at the airport, and then your design aircraft before getting into next steps. And then we'll remind everyone where those master plan chapters can be reviewed online. So next slide, please. Purpose and objectives. The primary objective of the forecast is going to be projecting future activity through the 20-year planning horizon. So that's out to 2041 to project activity of operations, and then also project the number of based aircraft so that we can subsequently make recommendations for additional facilities or things that might be needed over the planning period. So the other things that the forecast chapter does, it identifies the airport's service area, which has been identified, you'll see in the text, primarily Worcester County, but also a percentage of based aircraft owners living in Middlesex County. So, right in this area in general. We review some socioeconomic factors, population, age, income, employment, things of that nature. Then we go and review the historic trends at Fitchburg, throughout the region, and then also national trends. We look at based aircraft, we look at aircraft operations. So I'm sure most people know this, but an aircraft operation is either a takeoff or a landing. So an aircraft that has taken off from Fitchburg and then again landed has made 2 operations. So projects the number of annual operations, looking at that history through the period. Then we take a look at your fuel sales. And then we're going to go into those projected growth scenarios. So there's a couple of different growth alternatives, and then a recommended growth alternative. And then what we do is also identify the design aircraft. And the reason that is so important is because the design aircraft is the most demanding aircraft making regular use of the airport, and therefore will be the aircraft where different design criteria's requirements, say your separation standards, your width of pavement, taxiway widths, things like that, are designed all around the design airplane and the dimensions of that aircraft. So moving on. Some resources that we use. So we use the FAA's Traffic Flow Management System Count, so TFMSC, and I think I'll say that a couple times throughout if I don't get too tongue-tied. So basically this is the operational counts detected by the National Airspace System. So this is any flight that has filed a flight plan that is detected by the system. it can be maybe a little bit unreliable, as it doesn't really capture those VFR operations, and it may also fail to exclude low-altitude flights or flights that don't enter the en route airspace. So, but it's kind of a good baseline to get an idea of what transient operations are going on around the airfield. So we've also used the FAA's terminal area forecast. That is the official forecast of aviation put out by the FAA, which is based on the airport's 5010 data. And so this is the FAA's historic records of operations at the airport, as well as based aircraft, and it also provides a projection into the future of future activity operations. The FAA TAF, as we get into the forecast a little bit, it again can be a little bit unreliable, just because Fitchburg is not a towered airport, so you don't have a hard count that's happening. And so there's a little bit of estimation that goes on, and data can be carried on from year to year at times. And so, you'll see as we get into further sections that we've used some of that data, and but we've used other resources as well, including the FAA aerospace forecast. So this is the national trends of airspace operations and across the nation. So it's just different aviation trends throughout general aviation facilities. It has to do with towered airport data. So this is actually hard numbers, and they show a history of, basically general aviation activity, et cetera, that has happened across the nation, as well as projects what future growth might look like across the nation. We've also consulted, probably the best resource that we've had has been the airport records. Debbie has just been instrumental in collecting all of this information for us. I cannot thank her enough for all that she's done and all the phone calls she's fielded, collecting these things. Peter as well, and just the aircraft, airport operators and different airfield businesses for taking the time to provide us with the best possible information, because no one knows the airport better than the people on the airfield every day. So everyone's just been so helpful in gathering and collecting this information. So I thank you all. Next slide. So I'll just pause for a minute and see if anyone has any questions before we jump into the...
Yes, please.
Okay.
Can you go back a slide, Matt, please? Operational counts using file flight plans. I would say that over 60 to 70% of the people that fly into Fitchburg do not use flight plans.
Correct.
And now we have a tool that's available, and you can get the information off it, which is the ADSB. It's incredible, and I'd like to have that included in this if you can do that, please, because I think it's going to show a massive, massive difference to the figures that you already have.
Is that almost like a counter?
Sorry?
As planes come in, I mean...
Every single aeroplane today has to have an ADSB on it. It's an automatic detection device.
It's almost like a code for a plane, right?
I can't hear you.
It's almost like a code?
Yes.
Per plane?
For every individual aircraft has a different code.
Right.
So any air traffic control system can actually see it flying around here. And it's all counted. And if you go onto FlightAware, they even have an ADSB count for every single airport today.
So every plane that's coming into our runway
And leaving.
is being verified?
Yes.
On that?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm going to say, because people come in at night now with the
course.
self-service gas station. I mean, things have changed within the last 2 years at our airport, and people are frequently coming in, and we don't know, I mean, now technology is caught up, and now there's verification of things coming and going, so that helps you with your records, because, I know Peter at night will be sitting there with a clicker for every plane that comes in, just to verify things. But again, I'm learning a lot. I could barely ride a bike, never mind fly a plane. But since I became airport commissioner, I've learned so much more about the airport and its functioning, and it's pretty, the FAA really put a lot of thought into this about tracking planes and accountability, let's say, just accountability.
That's another resource we're happy to take a look at. I think the biggest thing, or the biggest point that Jackie's making is without this being a towered airport, it really is difficult to hone in on the actual operations that are happening here. And trying to develop a trend for future aviation operations is somewhat difficult and limited based on this data. But yeah, no, we'll definitely take a look at that, and that's a great suggestion. Thanks,
Yeah.
Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And any comments that anyone has throughout, I mean, really, this is intended to be an initial presentation just to get the ball rolling, to get everybody comfortable, and to kind of have a working group meeting so that we can have these discussions. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Peter. So to get into the preliminary forecast that we started developing as part of this chapter, we took a look at the based aircraft, and we looked at the historic trends of based aircraft from several different sources that I just discussed, and we came up with 2 alternative growth scenarios. So you'll see the orangey yellow line there. Alternative 1 is the historic airport growth rate. So this is the looking past the last 10 years at the airport and taking an average of the trend for the last 10 years. And the trend, according to airport records, was actually a little bit of a decline of 0.8% per year on average. So what we've done here is we've taken that growth rate and we have projected that out over the next 20 years, and you arrive at about 97 total based aircraft by 2041 using this scenario based on the historic trend. Now, if you look at the blue line here, this is the alternative to hangar proposal. So what we've done is we know that there is this hangar proposal in place for 9 additional hangars. If we assume that these hangars are able to move forward and that, 9 buildings are constructed, we were a little bit conservative with our estimates and said, maybe in the short term, 9 new based aircraft would come in right away and fill the spaces. So 9 aircraft by 2026. And then using the FAA aerospace forecasts, forecasted growth rate for general aviation based aircraft, so that's the national trend that I was talking about before, we just added that. We figured there'd be a little bit of modest growth through the end of the planning period, and we use that growth rate. It's 0.1% per year, but just, to show that we're trending upwards here. And this scenario actually takes the airport from the 114 based aircraft as counted in 2021 up to 125 based aircraft by 2041. So what we've done for this scenario, for now, what we have here is we've recommended alternative number 2 as the based aircraft forecast, just because we do know that there is activity at the airport. We know that there is very credible interest in constructing these hangar buildings. Now, there is, with the caveat, and you'll see the footnote within the text when you read it, we've added a footnote to say that, this really is dependent on that 4102 A and B airspace issue being resolved. So we are aware of that. We're still going to recommend, for now, this alternative 2 hangar proposal as the recommended growth scenario for based aircraft, with that caveat that, that is dependent on that hangar proposal moving forward, which is dependent on the 4102 space being resolved.
Can I just interrupt real quick and just say just one thing to point out too? The FAA does not construct projects based on recommended growth. They actually construct projects based on actual demand. So although we're showing a positive trend, which is good for purposes of planning, it's the actual operations themselves on a year-to-year basis is going to be the impetus for actual development and growth at the airport. So just wanted to make that clear, just so people weren't thinking, well, we should always be shooting for the positive scenario because that means funding comes in, because funding's not tied to a forecast or projections. It's tied, like I said, to that actual operations and growth at the airport.
Yes,
Sorry
Peter. No.
to bug you all the time.
No.
The 7 to 9 hangars, to my knowledge, there's going to be 2 aircraft in each one. One is a jet, and the other one is their small Cirrus SR-22, so that could double that number.
Right.
So instead of being 9, it's 18. Now, on the airport master plan itself, the first one that you did, Matt, showed those 7 to 9 going virtually parallel or in line with hangar 14.
Yes, you're talking about the actual physical.
The
yes.
physical
Yep.
now.
Yes.
Now, behind that, we can have another 9.
Correct.
Behind that, we can have another 9.
Yep.
And I think we should talk about it, just to show, you know, the FAA and MassDOT Aeronautics that it's planning for the future and the growth is going to be there. And appreciate that the first 9, you know, we haven't got it yet because of 4102A and B, but I just think it's a point to actually show when the airport master plan, when you guys have done the marvelous job that you're doing, that, you know, there is this growth projected.
Yep.
And I know it's difficult to say, well, we can guarantee you in 10 years that there's going to be another 15 or 20 hangars there. We can't say that. But in all honesty, the growth opportunity is there. It is a nice big area, a suburb of Boston. People can't build hangars and airports in Boston. They've got to come out here. And, you know, it's a massive opportunity for the city.
Understood, understood. And we can certainly, you know, make notes of that or do whatever it is that you would like to do. The reason for including the 9 based aircraft again was just to try to keep it a conservative estimate. We know that this hangar proposal is there, it is out there. So again, with the 9 based aircraft over the short term was really just a conservative estimate, but we can.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah, I think, Peter, to your point, we could even add in just a little note that there's ample room at the airport with the discontinuance of 220 for additional hangars. And obviously, as Jackie was mentioning, a lot of that's going to be predicated on the airport's ability to get that airspace clear from the restrictions.
Agreed.
So putting something like that in the text, I don't think is a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
thank
we should at least footnote that and say that there is ample space for additional hangars.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments on based aircraft before we keep moving on? Okay. So moving into your aircraft operations forecasts, 2 scenarios here that we're providing. And again, just back to the point we were making before about it just really being a challenge at a non-towered airport to estimate aircraft operations. So we've done, the baseline number that you see here is, it's 61,360, and that is taken from the FAA terminal area forecast, lacking better information. That was the only piece of, you know, hard data that we really had to go by. So that's what we've started here as the established number. And then we have 2 scenarios. So if you look at the historic rate of growth, I guess you'd say, from the terminal area forecast, the trend at Fitchburg was negative 0.1% per year. So we took that historic growth rate and we applied that through the planning period. You'll see on the red line there. And that results, by applying that rate, in about 60,144 operations by 2041, so a slight decline over the 20-year planning period. And then you'll see the blue line here is the FAA aerospace forecast trend. So what we did is, again, starting with the 61,360 total operations number and taking the FAA aerospace forecast, they have a trend for general aviation operations of 0.8% per year through the planning period. So, you know, again, just with the knowledge that there is traffic at this airport, it is a busy airport, there is interest in constructing hangars, there really is, you know, it's likely that the airport could see growth over the planning period, and kind of, again, lacking that better data, just going with that national trend. It's a very modest growth rate at 0.8% per year. So by the end of the planning period, when you apply it, you get about close to 72,000 operations by 2041. And again, you know, with this trend, we've also added the caveat with, you know, 4102A and B kind of being dependent on that issue being resolved to see the growth that we're expecting.
Peter, I think your previous point applies to this slide in growth as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Any questions on the operations? Okay,
Just a comment.
of course.
So the blue line represents the 0.8% growth that's expected nationwide.
Correct.
So what are we supposed to hit that 0.8% and we get monies? Are we get above 0.8%, we get more money? How does it affect us moving forward, or does it not affect us?
So it really doesn't. Everything's going to be dependent on what actually happens in real time, in real life, based on your operations, based on your based forecast. All we're trying to do for airport master planning purposes and this forecast purpose is try and predict or project what the airport may see based on a lot of this information that Jackie's presented, based on the information that we know about these potential hangar owners, the fact that there's a brand-new 5,001-foot runway. A lot of that stuff being in a highly economic area, such as Fitchburg, has a lot of draw, and it's a unique airport. And so we're just projecting that you may see trends similar to what the nation is expected to see over the next 20 years. Going back to what I was saying earlier, though, it's the actual demand for the facilities that's going to drive the FAA funding those certain projects. So it's not like if you hit that 72,000 operations number, the airport gets an additional 150,000 per year. You're still a non-primary, GA airport, and you're going to get $150,000 per year. That's your non-primary entitlement funds. That doesn't go up if you hit this number. It doesn't go down if you don't hit that number.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh, I understand it. So forecasting, it's every 5 years to see if we've actually met those goals. What does that do for us? Like in 5 years, let's say we exceed, we climb 2% in 5 years. What would change at that point?
The only thing that would really change is if there's a facility need at the airport. Are you short on hangars? Are you short on the size, the capacity of the fuel that you're selling, for example? Do you need an additional tank? Do you need, other Jet A or other fuel types or something like that? That's what would drive it if you started seeing additional growth at the airport.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, the runway length is pretty much hemmed in. You've got the Nashua River on both sides. Short of bridging that and crossing that, you have the runway length that you have today is what you're going to have in 20 years. The demand for hangars and taxi lanes and fuel and stuff like that, that would be driven by the number of operations and based aircraft.
Okay. And so that all remains to be seen.
That is correct. Yep. And all we're saying is taking a look at the best available data that we have to us, using that terminal area forecast, which unless someone goes to the FAA and tells them otherwise, year after year, a lot of that data is just carried over, which really makes it very difficult. It's sort of like garbage in, you get garbage out. To suggest that an airport that's just undertaken a massive reconstruction project and has a really good draw is going to see a decline, we're saying that that's probably not so realistic. But looking at the national trends, we think Fitchburg falls more in line with that. And that's just a projection.
Yeah. Thank you.
Matt, so if our growth is faster than we predicted, the FAA will step in and would aid us in facilitating fuel, if we need more fuel.
Correct.
Equipment there. They would help with hangars as well?
Hangars, probably not so much. I mean, there's only so much discretionary funding to go around. Those are a revenue-generating project, so if they were to step in and assist with a hangar development, for example, the airport would have to save and bank up a lot of its non-primary entitlement funds. There's different strings that are associated with the FAA funding a hangar project.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then, of course, just to add, at the airport CIP meeting every year, the activity at the airport and different needs would be reviewed at that time. So that's really the airport's opportunity with FAA and Mass DOT every year to look at the growth that's happening, to see if that's actually come to fruition, have things materialized faster than we anticipated, and there are needs that we didn't anticipate needing quite as soon in the master plan. So you have that opportunity each year to revisit that with FAA. Any other questions?
I have a question, sorry.
Yes.
Does this take into effect the political situation? I don't mean with respect to, you know, the national parties, but Massport seem to be pushing the smaller aeroplanes out of their airports, like Bedford. We get inquiries from Bedford. We know that Stowe maybe will be sold. Does it take that sort of thing in? So if these people move, they're going to come to us. So it's just a question. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the best way to answer that, Peter, is when we get into the facility requirements, and then ultimately we'll start looking at your airport layout plan. So the airport layout plan is going to be the snapshot of all these future projects that the airport may want. That's like your wish list of projects. Given the amount of land that Fitchburg has at the airport and your ability to take on these additional based aircraft and stuff like that, we're definitely going to put together, I think everyone would agree, we'll be putting together a plan that'll actually show future development and ability to take on additional hangars and things like that, and how that would actually shape up if a lot of those things actually come to fruition over that 5-year, 10-year, 20-year period.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay. So just moving on, this is just a summary of what the recommended forecast. So you'll see you have the short-term planning period 2026, midterm out to 2032, and then your long-term 2041. So these are just a summary of the anticipated operations and based aircraft based on the forecast scenarios we just discussed. Questions, comments? Okay, keep on moving on. So this is just showing the airport's operational fleet mix, so your piston versus turbine versus jet activity. And so you'll see here what we've done is we know that all of the based aircraft on the airfield are the piston aircraft. So we have taken the split of local versus itinerant operations. We've attributed all of the local operations % to those piston aircraft, and then the itinerant operations, and you'll see a breakdown of this within the text that's probably explained maybe a little bit better than the brief summary I'm giving now, but we looked at the TFMSC data and the breakdown of the different aircraft, and we assumed that the TFMSC breakdown of piston, turbine, jet, et cetera, would account for the transient aircraft operations. And then so you kind of do the calculation here, and you come up with, most operations are going to be done by piston aircraft, and then you'll have some turbine, jet, and then there was actually a small percentage in the TFMSC that were listed as unknown, so we've accounted for that as well.
That's Peter and his glider flying around.
Right, thank you.
Any questions about the fleet mix or any input that anyone has for that?
Could we assume that we have more accurate information on turbine aircraft coming into the airport than we do piston aircraft? Would it be more likely you'd file a flight plan with a turbine
Absolutely.
than you would for a piston?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And to me, exceeding the national average would, to me, is the benchmark. We should think about the 0.8% growth and hopefully exceed that. If we exceed it, it's verification that we're doing things right and moving forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that come into play.
Many.
The economy, for example, inflation, things like that, the cost of fuel. You'll see a lot of your recreational Saturday, Sunday pilots perhaps not go out as frequently, just given the cost of fuel.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that if you don't exceed the national trend that you as a commissioner of the airport are doing something wrong. I think there's probably a factor in there that's driving it down, and that's just one example is cost of fuel.
Right.
Yeah, true, because some of the fuel sales, they're all in dollar amounts, they're not in gallons.
Correct.
So it's hard to say if that was a better year than the year before, or the price of fuel was just high that year.
Yeah.
Okay, good point.
Yep. Any other questions?
I've got a comment.
Okay.
To be honest, I think, can you just stick that back again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be
that one.
too jumpy.
Sorry. If you look at the 93.2% piston at the moment, that could change within the next 5 years as people develop turbines to go into Cessna 172s and 152s. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Definitely, because of the fuel situation. So I think, not necessarily giving us more aeroplanes, but that will definitely change over time. That's a prediction.
Yeah. I mean, I truly think, and I mean, a lot of times you see a lot of these planning documents, they're sometimes shelved. I would strongly recommend that this commission and this airport use this as a living, breathing document and go back and check and verify after 4 years, 5 years. Go back and see, hey, we projected this, where are we now? How is that changing? What's the evolution of the airport look like based on the numbers either going up or not hitting what we thought they would in the 5-year period?
It's going to be a working tool, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it should be. I think you should be
agree.
tracking this stuff. Yep.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's where accurate information is real important, because if you base it on inaccurate information to the get-go, you really don't know what's going on. I mean, you'll know after 10 years, but you may not know in the next 2 years.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions here? Okay, so getting into the design aircraft, as I was talking about before, that is the aircraft with the dimensions that will determine the sizes of various facilities, width of pavement, separation, wingtip clearances, things like that. And their aircraft are defined by two specific categories. So you have the aircraft approach speed category, the A through E there, and then you have the design group, which is determined by the combination of tail height and wingspan, and that goes from 1 through 6. So again, we have identified as part of this forecast the Dassault Falcon 50 to remain the design aircraft, and that was done for a couple of different reasons. Number one, in 2019, when the runway 1432 project was being justified, that was the aircraft that the runway was designed around, so that was one supporting factor. Also, you have fuel records that are reviewed pretty thoroughly in the chapter that you'll see. You have the TFMSC data, discussions with the airport, different airfield businesses really indicate regular use by the Category B and or Design Group 2 family of aircraft. So again, supporting that type of aircraft is probably the most demanding, making that regular use. And just as a quick aside caveat, the FAA defines regular use as 500 operations by that airport per year. Also, it's kind of assumed that if this hangar proposal moves forward, it's very likely that additional B category or design group 2 combination of those types of aircraft will be added. So there really wasn't any information that we could find that would support variation or changing the design aircraft at this time. Certainly, if anyone has better data or information that would support a different design aircraft, we're more than welcome to take that, and we would, take any comments that you have.
So is that plane in design group 2?
It's B2.
Yes.
Yep, B2.
Thank you.
So then the next slide is just a little fun slide that I put together, just showing the different sizes and categories of aircraft. You have your just Cessna, there's your design aircraft, and there's a Cessna citation there for you. So just to kind of give an accurate depiction of the different sizes, and the little guy that's standing there is assumed to be about 6 feet tall. So those are your different sizes, just to give everyone kind of an accurate depiction of the types of aircraft.
That's to scale, is it? That's to scale.
It's pretty close to scale, yes.
So, Jackie, the Falcon 50, that determines the space between hangars and as well as the space between the runway and the taxiway center lines and so
Correct.
forth and so on, and the size of the ramp, or how much does that, how important is that?
So it is very important. So that will determine, as I said, wingtip clearances. That B2 is really what's important, not necessarily the Dassault Falcon, but that family grouping of B2 aircraft
Yeah.
will determine all those things. The sizes of your tie-down spaces that are required, the spacing between the tie-down spaces, wingtip clearance when you're talking about going around a fixed object, your separation standards, all of those things will be designed around that design aircraft.
Okay.
Is the Dassault Falcon, is that 61-foot wingspan?
Length, I'm sorry.
It's length. beg your
Length,
pardon.
I apologize. I should have
All right.
I should have put length.
Okay. Thank you.
So any other questions about design aircraft? Okay, so just getting into the next steps of the master plan. So as I said before we can move into these other chapters, we really do have to get an approved forecast by the FAA. So your comments and input between now and a couple of weeks from now will be really critical so that we can move forward with getting sending this to FAA, to Mass DOT, and then subsequently getting that approval. So assuming that all moves forward and moves smoothly, we'll move into the other chapters, which will consist of Chapter 5. This is your evaluation of facility requirements, where you'll take a look at all of the airside and landside facilities and make a determination of their adequacy based on the forecast that we're developing now, based on maybe some non-compliant designs. Are there outdated conditions or things that are aging that need to be addressed? And anything and everything will be included in that chapter, and then recommendations made for what needs to happen to address those things. So then we'll present Chapter 5 to the Commission and to the public, followed by starting to develop the alternatives. So this is where you get into, you've in Chapter 5 identified the facility needs that you have. Chapter 6 looks at how do we implement these? What is the best hangar layout? How many hangar spaces or how many hangar buildings can we fit? What size buildings should we include here? Is the apron an adequate size? Could we potentially reduce the size of the apron and maybe gain space for additional facilities? Things of that nature we'll look at through the alternatives. And then, of course, any needs that the commission has, we could certainly take a look at various alternatives, and your input throughout this process will really be critical as far as, determining what your needs are, because nobody knows your needs better than you do. So, yes.
Jackie, we've been planning even before we were first talking about the runway expansion. The need for hangar space was critical. And I was on the forefront of trying to get the city appropriate funds, and this is the direction we should be going. Any building we take down, any available land would be used for our own municipal operated hangar space. As you were talking and making your presentation, I'm thinking now all of a sudden looking at a Falcon 50, people are going to come in, and everyone likes to put their plane in the garage, but we never thought, basic size Cessna planes would fit in a hangar, and you can make a row, make your hangar condos. But now people may be coming in with bigger planes.
Sure, understood.
So is us thinking, oh yeah, we're just gonna make a layout and put up some hangars, that idea now goes out the window, because people are gonna come in with specific size planes.
Understood.
And now we're back to the drawing board. Now we got to rethink this whole thing out. And, maybe I was thinking small-mindedly, people in this area, you would have a smaller plane. But now, within the last year or so, the philosophy is people who got big planes are coming in to take over and lease our property to put, their bigger aircraft in. So we as a city have to restructure that too, because we always thought it was going to be, the mindset was just going to be what's available for our local people, but it's not the case anymore. It's going to be people coming in, so.
Sure, understood. And so when we're talking about developing alternatives, just so the commission is aware, now, first of all, you're not limited by selecting the Dassault Falcon as the design aircraft. You're not limited to only servicing that size of aircraft. If there are larger planes that are coming in that need to be accommodated, certainly, larger hangars can be constructed based on that need. And again, just to ease everyone's mind, when you start developing those alternatives, and even when you select a preferred alternative, and that subsequently goes onto the airport layout plan, that doesn't necessarily mean that the airport is committing to constructing the exact hangar layout as shown on the ALP. It's really just an indicator to the FAA that the need has been justified and that in general in this area, this type of development will be happening, or this type of development is desired here. So if you have, maybe there's a need for, you have added a bunch of box hangers onto this one area on the ALP, and you decide, wow, there's really a need for T hangers in this space. FAA isn't going to say, oh no, too bad, so sad. You designated this for box hangers. You're stuck with the box hangers. You can certainly, based on your need, develop whatever type of hangars you would want in that space, and you're definitely not limited to just the B2 category of hangars.
So what we would be planning for is just a layout of properties for hangars, not designating T hangars, box hangars, whatever. It's just that this area is going to be for future growth hangar space.
And we'll show different layouts just to kind of give everybody an idea spatially of, okay, well, how many of this size box hangar would actually fit here? How many T hangars could we reasonably, accommodate in this area? But, just because we show a particular layout or just because we show a type of building, you're not committed to that specific thing. So you will see specific sizes and different specific types of hangars when we get into the alternatives. That's really just to give a spatial idea of what you could fit there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good.
Jackie, could you clarify, our runway, can it support a larger aircraft than a B2?
Yes.
Yes.
It can?
Yes.
Okay.
So designating the design aircraft, again, is just the most demanding aircraft making regular use of the airport. That does not limit the airport, or that does not preclude other aircraft from landing at the airport. If they're able to safely land on the 5,001 feet, they certainly can do so. You're not limiting yourself in that way.
But, we can't design a little airport around a 747. We'll only have like 2 hangars and and a single taxiway.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be getting 777s in here
No.
soon, but you definitely can accommodate much larger aircraft than the B2.
Right.
Right.
I think your snow removal equipment actually may be heavier than most of the aircraft that lands on that anyway.
Is that right? Yeah.
Really?
Okay, I just so I can keep it straight in my head, but
Yeah, absolutely.
you start taking up space when you start making large sweeps in the taxiways and
Right.
stuff like that. And next thing you know, like I say, you don't have any room for buildings once you.
No, and I think just to Jackie's point, you're not committed to doing box hangers in a particular area just because you show box hangers there, but I do think it's important, knowing what we know, knowing that there's some corporate interest in Fitchburg, that we do try and plan corporate development in a certain area versus your general aviation in another area.
Yeah.
You want to keep those two, somewhat separate. You don't necessarily want to mix them. So again, just getting back to what Jackie's saying, although you're not going to be necessarily committed to the size of the hangar, I think it is important to just make that differentiation on the plan and actually think about how that's going to lay out in the future.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you.
So just kind of getting into, so once we go through the development of alternatives, we'll again give a public presentation similar to this, and then the commission at that point in time can select the preferred alternatives that will subsequently go on to the ultimate airport layout plan, and then that will be submitted to FAA. So again, just a little note here that I've included. At the bottom, oh, I think we're in the previous slide. So just because the commission selects a preferred alternative, you're not committing the airport, you're not committing the city, you're not committing FAA or Mass DOT to funding a particular project. This is just a, I guess, big wish list of the airport. If you could have everything that you possibly needed, wanted over the next 20 years, what would the airport look like? So you don't necessarily have to fund all of these projects. They don't have to come in at the timing that we've anticipated. You may, like we said before, find that you have a need that's more immediate, and then that project could be pushed into, a sooner year, or if you don't need it, right away, you could push it to an out year as well. So, again, this is just best information that we have today moving forward. What would the ideal plan be for the airport? All right. So next, just to reiterate, all chapters of the master plan are going to be posted onto the Fitchburg City website, and they're available at that link right now. Chapters 1 through 3 are up for public comment. Certainly encourage the public, anyone who's listening, anyone who's watching, anyone who is interested to please view the chapters, make comments if you wish, and those can be addressed by the airport. Once we get all comments back from the commission and airport on chapter 4, we'll certainly provide that to Deb. Oh, she's still here, to upload onto the city website, and then as we develop future chapters, those will all be put onto the website as well. So, closing it out, any other questions?
I think we're good.
Okay,
Just a comment.
sure,
Nice presentation, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks for the questions.
Thank you. Yeah, very helpful. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, on to item 5, Fitchburg Pilots Association.
What about C&D,
Update.
Chairman? C&D,
Oh, hold on.
see if there's any notice, any update on that. Item C&D?
Standby generator.
I think
You got it?
Matt already answered that, no?
What, the standby generator?
No.
And the self-serve fuel?
All right, let's go. Airport Master Plan, item B. Item C, standby generator. Does anyone have any update?
I do not. Do you, Peter?
Okay, no, I don't know. My understanding is that this is all being reviewed by MassDOT, right? And don't they come out, is it the end of January that they come out with any of the ASMP?
This was one of the ASMP projects, right? Yeah, so this is, there's several airports I know have submitted ASMP grants, but we have not heard a peep from Mass DOT.
Right.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
And I would assume item D was also a grant for the fuel truck transfer valves?
Yes, it was.
Which has been submitted, correct? Yeah. But they do have until the end of January to reply? Is that what it is, or is it?
They can issue these, I think they can issue these grants whenever they want. They need to be completed by June 30th
Right.
of 2022.
Oh,
So the monies need to be expended in their fiscal year is what it is.
all right. So it could be as late as February or March?
Could be. It has been in the past, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Do we keep on pushing them?
We do. I know Armin from my office had a call in to Owen Silbaugh, who's the Director of Engineering. I'm not sure if he actually got a hold of him today or not, but I will follow up and let you guys know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, item 5, Fitchburg Pilots Association update. Peter Kettle?
There is no update other than that, in discussion with Attorney Pusateri, we asked the Pilots Association if they would take on the crew car. And that's the first one with the little reddish colour on top of the paper that I gave you. And I got an answer back this morning that no, they're not prepared to do that because the outlay, even though they're giving a free car, they would have to service it, they'd have to insure it, and that's just beyond their means being a non-tax company. So, but no, nothing to report from the Pilots Association.
Okay, thank you. New business, R4102A and R4102B, which in layman's terms is the hot area over there at Devon's that eliminates us from doing a straight-on approach for the runway.
Correct.
Any new news?
Yeah, there is actually. I got a contact over there named William Dodson, and he was the main contact point for the 4102A and B. And he said, look, he said, I've spoken to the commander, there's nothing that we can do, and he actually gave me an email address to contact. Well, I put together a nice long email and sent it to them, and then I was talking to George Pantelli of the FAA, because he's actually stopped any more shows, the Brazil Festival, the car shows. They're not doing that anymore because it's an aviation facility. They want aviation events to go onto an airport. So I politely informed him that, you know, he's taken $50,000 a year away from the airport, which we were using to develop the airport, the roofs, the doors and everything else. And I said, you've taken that away. And he made the comment, yeah, but, you know, we've allowed you to do 7 to 9 hangars with a 60-year lease. And I said, yeah, but you've given us something that we can't use. What are you talking about? I said, because the pilots and the owners of these new hangars that want to build them can't use them because of the restricted zone 4102A and B. Why would they build approximately $2.8 million worth of hangars at the airport if they can't fly in to get to their hangars or whatever? And he said, well, what have you done about it? And I told him, and he said, send me all the details. I will pull a meeting together and we'll sort this out. So that's the good news. The FAA are now working on the restricted zone, which they didn't want to get involved with before. So that's good news as far as I'm concerned.
So they're going to be involved.
Sorry?
So now they're going to be involved, the FAA.
Yes, they are involved, definitely.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for him to actually call a meeting. And, you know, when that happens, I'll let everybody know.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, new business, item B, lease assignment with Rick Bullock and Rich Curley.
Yeah, that's the third document in your little package that I put together. Sat in front of the City Council last night and made the presentation for them to move ahead with it, explaining that Mr. Bullock was, you know, an excellent tenant for 24 years. His lease was a 10-year lease and he's done 4 years of it, so there's 6 years left. And I then went on to talk about Mr. Corley having Hangar 1, being an excellent tenant. Neither of them owe any money to the city. And Mr. Corley has 7 SR-22s, and he wants that hangar to bring all the planes from the other airports in Massachusetts to Fitchburg, plus quite a large jet as well. So the opportunity here is to get him over here, take on the next 6 years, bring in a jet that we're going to sell more jet fuel to, and he's also part of one of the people that's interested in building one of the 7 to 9 hangars. So it's all come together really well, and they approved it last night. It's assigned.
Good.
And Mr. Bullock's going to get the appropriate documentation together and get it moving, because they want to move in at the end of this month.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Of course.
That was a hurdle. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Item new business, item C, the door for the lobby, which we just touched upon at last month's meeting. We were going to get some estimates, I think.
Yeah, we were. Mr. Karlstedt, the facilities director, was going to come back to me with some names so I could call and get people in to do, a quotation. Unfortunately, he's been away, and he's promised it to me this week. So by Friday, and then I'll make the calls, and we'll get it done.
Very good, thank you. Old business, item 7, sub-item A, Carlos Silver Events 2022. Can we still hold these events at the airport?
These events are totally blocked now.
They're blocked.
Absolutely not. It's an aviation facility, so it's got to have aviation events. And that's when I actually mentioned to Mr. Pantelli about, taking money away from us. And I believe that's why he got involved with the 4102A and B, so that we can get those hangars in there and make $340,000 on jet fuel sales from just those 7 to 9 hangars. So, no, that's out. I had a meeting with Carlos yesterday. He came back from Brazil, very disappointed, obviously. But I advised him to contact the Bolton Fairgrounds in Lancaster.
Right.
Because that's an ideal, there's no houses around it, it's a perfect place.
Yeah.
So even though he's, unhappy, he's still happy that he's got something to go after. So, but we won't be seeing Mr. Silver at the airport anymore.
That's too bad.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if Bolton Fairgrounds needs a reference, we could certainly,
Absolutely.
tip our
Absolutely.
hat to that. All right, item B, drone ordinance. Are we moving forward?
We are. The drone ordinance is the last 2 pages of the little document I gave you. That's been approved by Attorney Pusateri, but we can't just move forward yet because the drone situation was presented to us by MassDOT Aeronautics as being a danger to pilots. So we've now put that together and I've sent it through to MassDOT Aeronautics and I'm waiting for their comments. They had to put it to their legal division. So that is moving ahead. I spoke to Drew Mahaley yesterday, who's the top guy on the drones, and he's promised me an answer within a week, so.
So they're just supposed to comment on the ordinance that we have drafted? Is that all we're waiting
Yes,
for?
yeah, just to approve it.
To approve?
Just to approve it.
So we can
yes.
move forward to City Hall? So
To
they-
City Council, yes.
City, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Item C, land access rental for the Leominster DPW. I can't recall where we were last month.
We were waiting for Attorney Pusateri to do the documents. They've all been done. It's now with Leominster DPW. We're waiting for the mayor to sign it of Leominster. And once it's signed, we'll get a check for the $8,600, I think it is, and it'll go through and be approved by the city council, and we're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Item D, tie downs.
That's still working in abeyance. The 2 guys have now gone down to Florida. It's their annual, 3 months vacation time, but we informed them that we would be sending documents down to them that they've asked for. They asked for additional documentation. We've almost got it all together. Excuse me. And they're ready to discuss. So before it was a no-no, but they're now ready to discuss.
How many planes do we have in the tie-down section?
Well, there's sorry?
In the tie-down section, how
Oh,
many?
no. Well, the tie-down itself, the reason that we're not moving forward with the tie-downs, because if you remember, I wanted to reduce it from $88 down to $50 a month.
Right.
There was a clause in one of the tenants' contracts, agreements, that said our fee, per monthly fee, is based on tie-downs. Well, the FAA 9 years ago took that away when we were in discussions with FA Fitchburg Airport, FACT. And the FAA would not allow that to happen. It's got to be based on a square footage area. So that's what we're working down now with the FPA Co-op. There's 2 owners, and they are happy to talk about it. They've just asked for a load of information, much more than I went with to the meeting, because I didn't realize they wanted all that.
Right.
So that's on us, that's on me. But it's moving forward.
Very good. Item E, RFP for 7 to 9 hangars. Last month's meeting, we extended the
RFP.
award of the RFP for an additional 90 days. Mary had sent Eric Shuffles that request, and it's been signed, and I don't know if Eric has been working with the attorney to shape that lease or not. And
Not yet.
I haven't heard it.
Eric hasn't been available.
Okay.
The attorney hasn't been available. My understanding is that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, they're going to have a meeting. But Mr. Shuffles came to see me this morning, and he's requested that somebody from the commission also sits in on that meeting with him and Attorney Pusateri. And he'd like that to be recorded.
I don't think that would be a problem. I think we'll just get somebody to do that. Yeah.
I'll let him know, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hangar 10, new doors.
We had the consultant come in, gave us a quote of $2,000 just to come and have a look to see if the structure, because as you all know, we want to put a hydraulic door on there instead of having the old roller door because of all the heaving and everything. It's very difficult to move in the winter. So we thought a nice hydraulic door just to lift up would be perfect. The biggest problem with the major producers of those is that they don't install them. They only sell it like a kit, and then you have to get an installer to do it. There's no installers in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, or anywhere. They're all down south. So managed to contact a guy actually in New Hampshire called Macy, M-A-C-Y, and they are construction engineers, and they actually do build the same door, and they do installation as well, which is wonderful. They came down and had a look, and they said, yeah, we can do this. And then I was looking around, and I wasn't happy with it. I didn't think the structure of the hangar was strong enough to take that 1.5 tons, just lifting it straight out. I could see the whole hangar just doing this with the weight on the end of it. So they got a professional engineer in, and he wanted $2,000 just to come and have a look. And he asked for drawings of this. Well, this was done maybe 45 to 50 years ago by Andy Liebfried. And Mr. Liebfried doesn't have the drawings anymore. So they need to actually get new drawings done, and the cost for this is $7,000.
Who's
So-
responsible for that?
Sorry?
Who's responsible for that?
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
We are. We have to do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, we made 50 grand with the 3 events, so we've got the money. And I just wanted to let you know that there's going to be another expense for $7,000 to get this actually done by the engineers. And once they've done it, they'll make recommendations, and we'll be good to go.
Okay.
So, and Mr. Nagel...
It has to be engineered right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's too dangerous. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
you've most probably got $1.5 million to $2 million worth of airplanes in that hangar.
Yeah, I know.
And if
I
that
understand.
hangar went bang, the city would be liable for it
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's our hangar. So,
We had sliders, we're doing the hydraulics, so it's,
So let me ask you this, Peter, for $7,000 and we get a no answer, do we get an alternative? Or do we have, they're going to make it structurally sound so we can put the hydraulic door on?
that's what the $7,000 is for, to do the evaluation and make a recommendation.
It is.
The recommendation might be, no, everything's fine.
Right.
And I think that's worth $7,000, to be honest.
Yeah, well,
But
that
if
would be a
it's
good
not,
answer, but yeah.
right, if it's not, then we know exactly what we've got to do because they're going to give us the design of it.
That comes with the
Absolutely,
$7,000 eval.
absolutely.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have to have a vote on that, do we, from the commission to,
You would,
okay?
yeah.
To appropriate
If
the
we're
money,
going to
yes.
appropriate $7,000
Yeah.
for this, it needs appropriation by us.
yeah.
So I would make I will make a motion to appropriate $7,000 for this evaluation, knowing that it's going to come with a solution.
I'll second that.
Okay, could we vote?
All right?
You have your $7,000 there, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Kettle.
Thank you, sir.
And it comes with an engineered stamp.
Oh, here's another, doors for hangar 2 and 3.
Yeah, the doors, can we do G and H together? Because the doors for hangar 2 and 3 and the roof of hangars 12 and 13 are both been done by Armand de Fresnay at Gale. And this is also an ASMP grant, so we're waiting for MassDOT Aeronautics on those two.
So same time frame as the other ASMP
Yes.
grants, could be tomorrow, but it could be
Could be
May.
June, but yeah, May.
Could be June. Okay. Thank you. Item I, the crew car, we've
Discussed.
spoke about it with
Yes, sir.
the FPA, they're not interested. Is there another, the subject is really driving me crazy.
Attorney
We have a
Pusateri,
car, all we have to do is park it and give somebody the keys, but we can't do that.
we can't do that because it's a public car. And you cannot give a public car to somebody to use for free.
Well, let's put a gumball machine inside it, charge them a quarter every time they want to use it.
To be quite honest, I sent an email to Attorney Pusateri, let's just charge him $10 nominal.
Yes,
Not acceptable.
why not?
He's going to come up with another idea that he thinks everybody will be happy with. So I said, okay, that's fine.
Because it's a city.
It's a city-owned vehicle.
Vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah, the public can't use it.
No.
Well, they can, but we have to get reimbursed.
You see, every other crew car at every other airport, I believe in New Hampshire as well, is owned by the FBO. So when they fly their aeroplanes in, they give them a car and they go and do what they want and they come back and it's all business for the FBO. Well, that's why we went to the Fitchburg Pilots Association to see if they'd do it. And no. So we're back to square one again, really.
Yeah,
But Attorney Pusateri, I believe, has a good solution.
okay,
So, okay? And as soon as I get that, I will inform all of you.
thank you. Item J, minimum standards, targeted completion by the end of the year. We know that was just shot from the hip, but where do we stand on minimum standards?
Look at this.
It's not even December 20th yet.
I know it's not. This is why you pay me the big bucks.
It is, huh?
That's just a draft.
Yeah.
I'd like you to have a look at it, make your comments,
Yeah,
and then once you've made your comments, I'll make any changes,
yeah,
and then we'll get it approved by the attorney to make sure there's no legal situation with, you know, the minimum standards.
yeah. Now, is this something the FAA also has to sign off on?
MassDOT Aeronautics, I believe,
Okay,
which is a subsidiary of the FAA, really, isn't it? They work closely together. So,
all right, so I'm going to make comments on this, and once the attorney sees it, it's going to come back to us, I would assume, for
Yeah.
approval.
yes.
Yeah, okay,
So now we've got until the end of December.
all right.
December.
If my dog eats this, do you have a copy?
I do, it's on the
Good, I'll take
computer.
it.
Yeah.
Thanks. Financial review, approval of commitments and abatements. Were there any abatements?
No abatements.
Executive session, we would have had to have said that already, but there is none tonight.
No.
Date of next regular meeting, okay, we have a change. December 15th, 2021, because following weeks are Christmas weeks. So,
Oh, I have a question. We haven't missed one commission meeting this year. Do you want to skip December because it's a holiday and just go to January?
I'm all for that, except, Gail, Matt or Jackie, do you have plans for December meeting?
We would need a formal vote from the commission to authorize Gail to move forward with sending the forecast to FAA for approval. So that is something that we were hoping for at that meeting.
Unless, Mr. Chairman, you can solicit comments from the rest of the commission and they can let you know if they're all set with comments. I mean, we're just saying we would need a formal vote from the commission, but,
Well, I mean, yeah, it's whatever the commission is comfortable with.
yeah.
All right, so you need comments by the end of November. You're going to put them all in place. You're going to present that back to us. To me, I'd rather do it in a sit-down setting on December 15th, even if we clear out the agenda for a half a dozen items, so we can get it done and get out of here. I think that's
Yeah,
the best route.
that's fine.
Yeah.
December
So
15th?
December 15th, 6 PM here.
Yep.
I'm glad I asked. Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
Regular meeting adjourned at 7:25.
thank you.
Let Dan know.